the Friday Night Drive podcast, South and West Edition. IHSA Sports Regional Editor, JT Pedelty. I'm Daily Chronicle Sports Editor, Eddie Carifio. Welcome. And JT, we got some good games this week, I think.
We do. And it just occurred to me when I was watching that intro video. We're halfway to week 5, which means we're halfway through the regular season already. It's really kind of cruised by, right?
Yeah, no, it's been a fast one. It's weird that it's week 5. That's all I'll say right now. It's crazy it's going that fast. So we should dive right in, and I think a good place to start is out west. This is the South and West Edition, and I'm assuming it's some cornfields, although I've never actually been to this field before. Dixon goes to Oregon. See, we should have had Sam on this week.
Yeah, we have a good guest, though.
Yeah, Rob's great, but Sam could have helped with this one for sure. Dixon, Oregon. This is a big one. Obviously, both of these teams in the BNC, probably second to perennial power, almost certain state champion lock-in unless they run into a misplaced private school. They're a lock-in for the state championship game. They've already lost to Byron. But you look at Dixon and Oregon, they match up. 6 Oregon players in their ground attack scored touchdowns last week. Dixon, obviously a little more balanced. They took care of North Boone, I believe, 48-0. I think that was North Boone's first loss of the year. 2 really good teams. Dixon has outscored opponents 110-0 since that loss to Byron. So this looks like a good one. I'm kind of liking Dixon in this one. I don't know if Oregon's quite made the leap to get past them yet, but this Oregon team, whenever we have Sam Ramirez back on, will tell us they're having themselves a year, and this is probably the best Oregon team in a while.
Yeah, it's weird that the big Northern, the way it kind of, we talked on a podcast, and I know Seuss and Matt did as well on our flagship podcast. Kind of talked about a little bit about kind of the front-loaded schedule this year for a lot of conferences and kind of some of the big games coming up earlier. Big Northern. I mean, geez, man, you already had Byron Dixon, you already had Byron Oregon, and now we're week 5, and then you're getting Dixon, Oregon. I think this should be a really good matchup. You're talking about who's that team right below Byron. Who can be that team second in the standings, probably get a home playoff game. Little bit of thing mixed in there now that they have one non-conference game on the schedule this year. I think Dixon is coming to Streeter. I'm not sure offhand who Oregon has. Dwight. Yes, they go to. Yeah. I knew it was someone down my way. Yeah, they go to Dwight in week 9. So a little bit of non-conference sprinkled in there, but neither of those games I would think would be too problematic for the teams. So this is really a game for maybe a meeting where they are competing to get maybe a second place in the conference and a home playoff game.
Yeah, no, this is absolutely what's on the line in this one. Like you point out, it's weird that the top 3 teams in the conference by week 5 will have played each other in every combination. You don't normally see it fall that way, but it has this year. Dixon, something I did want to also point out about Dixon is that they have only given up 1 touchdown this year to teams that aren't Byron. So their defense, I know they can put up points. They got Landon Carnegie, is the K pronounced? See, this is, but
that one I'm not sure. I haven't seen that one before.
They've had you get so used. I could spell it, and then because the journalist brain, but then the podcasting thing is still new. I say after having done what is it, season 3, 4? So
I tell people all the time, man. Hey, there's a reason I'm a writer and not a broadcaster in general. Aside from this wonderful podcast, of course.
Yeah. No, absolutely. No, it's a it's a really good game. Dixon, Oregon. I like I said, I kind of like Dixon in this one, but I do think it could probably go either way.
Yeah, and I think Dixon or Oregon. Dixon did a nice job kind of taking care of. North Boone started off 3-0. Were they in that conversation? And, last week Dixon beat them 48-0. So maybe North Boone is not in that conversation. So I think these are definitely the 3 top teams, and we'll see how they settle out.
Yeah, we'll actually see. I'm seeing North Boone this week play Genoa because I know it's a 3-1 team versus a 1-3 team, but The schedule for Genoa has been they have already faced, or excuse me, all three of their losses have been by a touchdown. They've all been by a touchdown. That they lost to a very good Seneca team last week. So it's I think there's actually be a lot more interesting on paper, that one too. But that's not what we're talking about right now. We're actually moving on to our next one. Move out of the BNC for a moment here.
We could talk about Seneca. Boy, that was a great showing for Genoa Kingston in a loss to Seneca, and a great win for Seneca. We talked a little bit about the Chicagoland Prairie sank down to just having 4 teams this year. So,
which is why so many of them are on the BNC schedule this year to fill in.
Correct. Yes, you find a willing and available partner, and you go for it. But yeah, they 2/3 of their schedule is going to be non-conference this year for those Chicagoland Prairie teams. And this is an interesting week. It's the first week that all 4 of them are playing conference games against each other. So you got Dwight's 2-2 visiting Seneca 4-0, and St. Bede 2-2 visiting Marquette 2-2. And one thing with this conference, there's what's left of it, almost a conference. I think I wrote in the notes, Chicagoland Prairie almost a conference. This Dwight team, that Dwight Marquette last week, kind of, I think made people slam brakes a little bit. Marquette handled Dwight 50-19. I know Dwight had some fumbles that kind of got out to a bad start that kind of contributed to that. But, I think Marquette, a lot of people just get used to, they'll be in the playoffs. They'll get around the second, maybe third round, I want to say bored with success, but you get used to it. Whereas Dwight was kind of an exciting team. Look at that run they made in 2A last year. They might be, now they're in 1A. What could they do this year? They might be. And Marquette just kind of said, nah, hold on, we're still here. So, looking ahead to that Marquette Seneca matchups that's coming up, that's obviously going to be, a huge one that we'll talk about next week. But for this week, Dwight at Seneca, Dwight needs to bounce back, and Seneca's a tough team to bounce back against. And then, St. Bede comes in 2-2 at Marquette 2-2. And if Marquette can keep it rolling, that matchup with Seneca next week will be really interesting.
Yeah, Marquette seems like an interesting one to keep an eye on down that way right now. Like they might be building some momentum here in the back half of the season.
Their schedule has been, and so much when we talk about teams being on streaks or this, I mean, we know, so much of it's schedule based. You talk about Genoa, I believe you said they're 1-3. A lot of that's who have you played? Who do you have left? There's a lot of reason for optimism. That's why when we talk a lot about Interstate 8 conference teams, the first thing you have to say is, hey, you're 3-1. Great for you. Who haven't you played yet in the conference? Yeah. And, what paths are still open to you? What paths are still haven't closed off? And in this case, Marquette, their 2 losses are to 2, excellent teams. That state championship team, Edgar from Wisconsin, they opened the year with Aurora Christian. They were competitive in both of those games. I think Aurora Christian kind of slipped away from them a little at the end and became a 20-point or whatever. But I hate saying this, but I mean, it's true. I mean, people get bored of success. They get bored of the same thing going on. And it's just not sexy to talk about a team like Marquette that pretty much every year just goes out there, makes the playoffs, and wins a couple games, and is a team nobody wants to play in 1A to draw in that first or second round. So you got to give them their flowers this week, and if they can take care of business against St. Bede this week, a big rival down here, if they can take care of that business and go into that Seneca game, see what happens. But yeah, I agree. Marquette is an interesting team that maybe doesn't get talked about as much as they should, just because they always kind of do the same thing, which is win.
Yeah, when you look at that schedule past Seneca for Marquette, it's set up for them they get past that one for them to end up possibly, 7-2. They have a 3-1 Knoxville team lurking, but everyone's else the last 3 games of the year past Seneca are all below 500. So they win the conference. And then they're in really good shape, for a home game first round.
Yeah. I think that pass up to him. Obviously, Seneca, that's a great win against Genoa Kingston, and a great showing by Genoa Kingston. Seneca really loaded up that non-conference schedule. So to be 4-0 at this point, heading into their conference schedule, they're going to have a tough one, obviously, with when they face Marquette, and Dwight's going to be no easy thing either. I think Brian Hoxie messaged me that Seneca's won the past 10 meetings, 12 meetings with Dwight, something like that. But they're rivals, a stone's throw away from each other. So you always kind of watch those games, closer than the final score, or throw out the records, which is a stupid saying, but sometimes it does prove true. So
Played out. Tired, but still true. A lot of times. It's not true as often as coaches want to say it's true, but it's still, there's a lot of times. And I think you go back to the recent history of the Cal Sycamore, just this decade alone, and you can prove going in both directions that you can definitely throw out the records. The giant asterisk being they played week 1 and they're both 0-0.
So Seneca, Dwight, we're talking about a couple neighbors of Morris, and we mentioned today's guest, Eddie.
Yeah, so we got a big one to talk about, and that's Kalen Morris. So we're bringing in Rob Osterly here. No one better to talk Morris football than him. Make sure we don't overlook anything. We would hate to do that. Rob, how are you doing today, bud?
I'm good. How are you guys?
Awesome, man. Doing really well. Yeah, when you're a really good football team and you play in a really good conference, you get really good matchups, and this is one of them. Morris 4-0, 1-0 in the Interstate 8, visiting Canelan 4-0, 1-0 in the Interstate 8. Obviously, this is one of those games that you circle. You got your Sycamores, your Rochelle, your Morris, your Canelan. Those are the 4 teams of the 6 teams in the Interstate 8 that kind of everyone says, man, this is a gauntlet you have to run through. And for Morris, this should be a good one, right?
Yeah, I mean they've been tested this year. Granted, played a 2A team in Wilmington, but probably one of the better 2A teams in the state. Held them to 20 points in the season opener. Since the Morris game, Wilmington has scored 49, 41, and 49. So Morris held them to less than half of that. Peoria, everybody knows how much they light up the scoreboard, and Morris held them to 28. One of those touchdowns was a pick 6, so it's really not on the defense. And the other games that Peoria has played this year, 42, 58, 76.
Wow, this is a down year for the Peoria High offense.
Yeah, it really is.
I usually see a couple 80s by now.
Yeah, only 170. But yeah, to that end, that everybody in this day and age is just enamored with whatever you can do on offense. But what's been getting it done for Morris this year is the defense, especially the defensive line. I mean, they rotate 6-7 guys in and out. They've always got fresh legs. Guys like Chase Batchert, Malachi Congo, Bryce Lee, Tomatoa Leao, and then the 2 linebackers, Nick Smith and Owen Olson, are just all over the place. They might not look physically like your prototypical linebacker. They're more, lean. They're not the big stout linebackers, but you're not running away from them. If you go side to side against Morris, they're gonna run you down. And they've improved their defense this year against the teams that like to run right at them too, which has been kind of their bugaboo the last couple of years. So, they're pretty complete. One of the things too that they've been doing the last 2 games, they've won without one of their top 2-way players, receiver / running back and defensive back Bryce Varner. He's got a broken collarbone, so he won't be back until about the playoffs. So learning how to win without him has been a big key for them also.
Yep. And Eddie, I know I think I edited your previews, Friday Night Drive. We have previews for all our markets for, boy, if I had to count how many games, it's probably 75, 80 games every week across northern half of Illinois. Preview key players to watch, and
honestly, I would say more than that, but I think that there's that many in Suburban Life alone. I think Josh has the right idea.
Editing the Herald News one every week, I know that there's plenty there as well. But you know what? Having edited your preview, I know you put a line in there, and that kind of as great as Morris's season's been to this point, Canelan could make an argument that they may be playing even at a higher level, or at least against the schedule they had compared to what Morris did against their schedule. I was going to give you a chance to kind of talk a little bit about Canelan from the Canelan point of view on this matchup.
Yeah, no, Canelan in this one, it's interesting because this is clearly a strength versus strength matchup. Canelan can score points. The defense for Canelan has been very good this year. They slipped up against Lamont and gave up, I want to say, I think it was like a 42-37 win, even though it's not quite as close as that sounds, because I think they were up 2 scores most of the way until the very end. I think once Lamont was down by a score earlier in the fourth. But, it was one of those games where it was that sort of situation. Thorgerson, the coach there, said he wasn't even sure how Lamont scored 37. Like, if you watched the game, it wouldn't have seemed like they scored 37. But it's Canelan's offense that has been exceptional this year, putting up points. They can do it either way. They can throw the ball. Jalen Carter, which, by the way, on FridayNightDrive.com, I believe it was the King County Notebook, leads with an item about him by Joel Bonitz. Leads with an on Jalen Carter on the year he's having. They can run at you with Carter Grabowski. He had a 200-yard rushing game earlier this year. In fact, I think it was the Lamont game. They're a very dynamic offense. With one of the things that would pop out in this game normally about me would be, okay, so the Morris defense is clicking along. They had that outstanding game against Peoria. So for most teams, you would think a letdown would be coming, sort of thing. Where, okay, well, we've handled Canelan every year for since 2018 or something like that. We've taken care of this team. We've beaten them. We're really good. You would expect a letdown, but obviously, Alan Thorson and Morris just has done it. Obviously, one of those just upper level coaches. I threw Joe Ryan and Sycamore, one of them that has just been there forever. And it's the system, and letdowns like that really don't happen. So I think you can toss that one on out the window.
Yeah, it should be an interesting game. I mean, you hit it, Eddie. It just Morris seems to be one of those teams that historically has had Canelan's number, even in years when Canelan should probably win. A lot of times Morris finds a way to pull it out, unless they happen to have a receiver named BB or Fleck. Yeah.
Well, way back when Canelan had dominated the conference. I think it was before I even got out here, but in the aughts, like you mentioned.
Yeah, I think that was
into the early teens too.
Yeah, that was around when PJ was playing, and when
they were rowing the boat.
Yes. I mean, I haven't seen Canelan. I don't know but it does seem like they're a little more balanced offensively than they tend to be. They tend to, at least in the recent history, they're more of an aerial type of team, but they really seem like they can do both this year, which, that obviously that causes problems for anybody, because what do you prepare for? What do you focus on? If you're focusing on the run, then you're giving up something on the pass. If you focus on the pass, you may be giving up something against the run. So it'll be a good chess match between the coordinators on what they do at given times. And Morris offense this year has been really ground centric. They've got a big, strong offensive line, and a couple of running backs that just don't go down easy. Caden Curran, if the first guy brings him down, that's usually an upset. He's got to be one of the leaders in yards after contact, because he just runs through people, and has the speed to take it the distance once he gets through. Brady Varner, the quarterback, full year, this is his second year running the system, so he kind of knows the ins and outs better than he had before. And it may even help the offense a little bit that he doesn't have his brother out there, because when he gets in trouble, that's who he tends to look to. Now he's got to look for everybody and get everybody involved. So, that may just, once Bryce does come back, now all of a sudden, you've added something else, and then Brady also knows what the other guys can do as well. So
I'd like to ask you guys a question, just kind of about the I-8 schedule. I'm just kind of been looking at it while we've been talking about this game, and this is out of left field. So if we sound unprepared, it's because we totally were in terms of this. But would you rather
always prepared?
Would you rather have a schedule and this is just the way it falls. I'm not a conspiracy theorist and IHSA scheduling, but for Morris and Sycamore, both of them kind of have it where they play one of the other top teams, and then they get a LaSalle Peru, then they play another top team, then they get an Ottawa, then they play the other top team. And that's how it falls for Morris and Sycamore. Whereas Canelan, this is the start of just a 3-game jaunt where they, they're home against Morris, they go to Sycamore, then they host Rochelle. So those other 3 teams that we expect to be in that top 2/3 of the conference, they have them back to back to back. Do you think there's any benefit to kind of having those 3 in a row, or do you think having that week off not that week off, having that week against an opponent that maybe isn't at the top of the conference is a benefit to you to have in between those 2? Or I'm just kind of curious. Just looking at the schedule, I found that interesting.
I think there's positives, obviously, both ways, because there's something to be said to just run through. Don't get a chance to think about it. Just play the games. Bam, 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 3 in a row, which is what Canelands is doing, correct? Because I know they have Sycamore next week.
Mm-hmm.
So, foreshadowing of what we're going to be in for next week's show. But I think there's advantages both ways. I could see the advantage to just having them just ripping it off like a Band-Aid.
I mean, I see what you're talking about too, Eddie, because, but on the other hand, it's, you're looking at 3 games in a row where you have got to be mentally and emotionally up every single time. And
which is a coach's dream.
You play Morris and Sycamore back to back. You're going to be awfully sore for that Rochelle game. Because Morris and Sycamore are going to come at you and they're going to be physical no matter what the score is. Whereas Morris and Sycamore, now it looks like they get, okay, here's a tough game. We might be beat up, but the next game, we might be able to get some more guys in and rest some of the starters. So they're not as beat up when the next big game comes. 6 of one, half a dozen of the other.
Yeah. And to be clear, with this conference, you say like, you have those 4 teams at the top and the other 2, definitely LaSalle, Peru. And I think you can make the argument Ottawa a few times over the years, or even when you go back to the Northern Illinois Big 12, Ottawa, for whatever reason, Geneseo sometimes had some struggles with Ottawa, even with Ottawa teams that maybe weren't the better Ottawa teams would kind of stun Geneseo. So, I mean, neither of those are teams, you take lightly, you look past, you do that because they're both teams, with talented players that play well. But in the terms, the way the Interstate 8 is kind of built right now that it's down to 6 teams, you kind of have those 4 that have been just kind of butting against each other in different combinations here in recent years. And so you look at that and you say those are them. But yeah, I think it'd be a great place to take a break, Eddie and Rob. And then when we come back, we can talk eliminator picks.
Sounds good.
I'm State Representative Steve Reich. Since 2017, I've led the fight to reform our child welfare system and supported educational choice for every kid in Illinois. I've worked to stop the collapse of our public pensions while standing up for businesses that are being crushed by crippling mandates. And I've never forgotten who pays the bill. The work isn't finished, and as I run for re-election, I'm asking for your support. I'm Steve Reich, and I approve this message.
SGKR Injury Attorneys tackles the toughest cases. I'm Matt Rundio. When life throws a flag, we go on offense to protect your rights. Don't get sidelined. Score a touchdown with SGKR. Visit us at sgkr.law.
At Oliver's, we are proud to serve our community. We serve up great customer service, quality products, ease of shopping, and we serve up delicious barbecued sandwiches at our fundraiser cookouts. So stop by Oliver's, 748 North Brinton and Dixon, and help fund our local clubs and events.
In Illinois and into Iowa, the story of Shaw Media is a story of trust. Since 1851, we've been informing, connecting, and reflecting the communities we serve, large and small, rural and urban, suburban, and river towns alike. With dozens of local newspapers, radio stations, magazines, and specialty brands like Friday Night Drive and Starve Rock Country, we meet people wherever they are. We shine a light on local government. We celebrate Friday night touchdowns. We tell the stories that shape your day, from neighborhood heroes to the Chicago Bears. But what truly sets us apart? It's our people. The award-winning journalists, broadcasters, and storytellers who live here, work here, and care deeply about what matters most to you. We don't just report the news. We're part of the fabric of the places we serve, from the Mississippi to the Illinois, from the Fox all the way to the chain of lakes. Trusted for generations, still earning it every day. Shaw Media, your most trusted local source.
Let's jump into some eliminator picks right now. So through 4 weeks, everyone's streak is still alive. Can't pick the same team twice. Can't pick against the same team twice. So we'll start with our guest this week. Last week it was Kevin Klum was the guest, and he went with Monrose over Mendota. And I can't remember the final, but Monrose did win that one. So, Rob, your pick this week.
My pick's going to be Seneca. And it feels good to say that after quite a long time of Seneca being on the other end. Terry Maxwell has really done a fantastic job of bringing that program. I mean, this is a program that won a state title in, what was it, 1990, I believe, and they were consistently, in the 90s and early 2000s. I mean, playoff teams, and usually deep playoff runs under both Dave Lett and Don Brown. And then I don't know what happened, but they kind of switched over. Hey, we're a basketball school now. and then won a state basketball title. So I guess they were right. But yeah, now this year, these last few years, looks like Terry has gotten that football program, really clicking. So it's hard for me to pick against Seneca in this one.
Yeah. We talked a little Seneca Dwight earlier, so that's an interesting one. It seems like Seneca would be on top, but also doesn't seem like it would be like the slam dunk caliber that, maybe. So it's an interesting pick. I like where you're going with that one. Fortune favors I don't like I say that in the context of it. Oh, it may not hit the running clock. The games we usually try to pick in these.
I would say this: if Dwight has a game this year where they want to prove something, this is that game. Coming off a unexpectedly lopsided loss to a Marquette team that I feel that they are at least on par with. To lose that badly and now to have a regional rival. These two have kind of followed each other around during the conference hoppings. I think they left the Interstate 8 within a year or two of each other, went down to that Vermilion Valley. I think it had 3 names and different super conference combinations while it was down there, but and then kind of came back up here to form this together. So, there's a rivalry at play, and I think Dwight has something to prove. That said, yeah, I mean, I think that's a strong pick, Rob. As for me, I was thinking I was going to go with Sycamore over Ottawa. We talked a little bit about the strength in the Interstate 8 conference. Second straight week, I'm picking against a team here in my home hood. It's been a long time since Ottawa's beaten Sycamore. I think since their undefeated regular season back in the early 2010s, back when they had a former Major League Baseball player, Michael Hermosillo, as their primary running back. But with the injuries Ottawa suffered and kind of the statement the Spartans just made in that game against Rochelle, which was a fantastic win for Sycamore, it's just hard to envision an upset here. So my pick will be Sycamore over Ottawa. Eddie, who you got?
Yeah, just by the way, point out your streak stayed alive last week with you went Coal City over Streeter, as you referenced, picking against your backyard. I'm sure you're going to have a good week down there. I'm sure Friday's going to be fine. No one's going to say anything to you. You're good.
I'm sure. And Monmouth, by the way, that Monmouth-Roseville Mendota score was 42-21. I know you said you couldn't remember, so I checked it out.
Okay.
So handy
win.
That
one. And then last week, my streak stayed alive with Lewin knocking off Dakota. So I'm going to stay up, and then UIC actually this week stay up in that area. I know we don't focus a lot on them. Obviously, we talked that Lewin Rochelle game a bunch when that one happened, but I am going to go with Stockton over Morrison. Stockton has had a solid year. They beat Lewin. That's something that usually doesn't happen over there. And I think I saw something that whenever Stockton beats Lewin, they win a state championship that year, or they at least make the semifinals. It's some weird correlation where it happens so rarely that they're that good, which means they have a long playoff run. So the rest of their schedule has been all winless teams. And I don't even know how this works out, how this is even possible, but this is another winless team they're playing this week in Morrison. So I'm going Stockton over Morrison for my eliminator.
Sounds good. And Rob, before we let you go, I was going to talk to you a little bit. I know you're covering a game this weekend that is outside of our cornfields area, but I think has some statewide interest, a chance to maybe see an IHSA record or two fall. Where are you at Friday night?
I am going to be at Naperville Central, where Jonas Williams from Lincoln Way East, the USC bound quarterback. From what I understand, after different conflicting reports on how many touchdown passes he actually had, from what I understand, he's 2 away from tying and 3 away from breaking the state touchdown pass record. And my God, I have seen Lincoln Way East play. He may get that in the first quarter.
Yeah.
I mean, he's phenomenal. And then I've seen a lot of great players in this area, a lot of really good quarterbacks. None better than Jonas Williams. Just the full package.
Which one did you say you were at? Naperville Central or North?
Central.
Central, okay.
Yeah, and I think he's coming up on the IHSA career yardage.
Yeah, I think he's about 1,000 away from that, so I don't think he'll get it.
Probably
maybe in the third quarter.
Yeah.
If they leave him in that long.
If he plays in the third quarter.
I don't know as he's seen the field in the third quarter yet this year.
Yeah, imagine those records if he did play the third quarter.
Because and then we spoke of Morris's defense. Well, my God, Lincoln Way East is, yes, they gave up 14 points against Lockport, but they were both special teams. The defense has given up one score all year, and that was, at least the second string, maybe the third. They shut out Kankakee, who just put out 86 points last week. So they both sides of the ball. Oh, by the way, their kicker can damn near put it through the goalposts on his kickoffs too. So there's obviously their special teams coverage needs some work, but if he can kick it out of the end zone, then they don't have to worry about it.
We should probably let you go. I don't want to get a cease and desist from Seuss and Welgie and Josh here. So
sorry.
Hey, thanks for joining us, Rob.
Yep, thanks for having me.
Okay.
We're sorry.
No, I think it's one of those things that should. I mean, as I mentioned, I think it's statewide interest, and you don't have kids like this, come through, all that often, where it's, when it's a record for a reason, and it's, statewide, and he's just a dynamic, amazing player. So thought it was worth bringing up. But yes, if I stepped on your toes, Susan, I do apologize. We'll come back down into our neck of the woods, back in the soybeans now. I know one other game I want to talk about, kind of down my way-ish a little bit, was Monmouth Roseville is undefeated, 4-0. They're visiting Princeton, who is 2-2. We've talked about that being a little bit of a surprise. Maybe thought they'd be 3-1 or 4-0 as well coming into this one. But this was the game last year that everyone kind of went, whoa, when Monmouth Roseville defeated Princeton. So Princeton started 0-2 this year. They got a forfeit win for their first one. They blew out Kewanee last week, 63-12. They're at 500. Our Friday night drive pick on this one is officially Monmouth Roseville, which makes sense. They beat them 31-3 last year. They're undefeated. Princeton isn't. Am I crazy for kind of liking Princeton in this one?
I mean, they've certainly got the intangibles going for them. You could say that way, the no one believes in us card, the backs against the wall, the out for revenge. I mean, they check all the intangible boxes. Now, obviously, with the on the field stuff, these two are a little out of my expertise, but it seems like this game were being played on paper. You'd probably pick Monroe's and probably by a touchdown or two from, looking at how it just matches up again, totally on paper from the nerd standpoint. And then all the intangibles lean, I think, like I said, a little more toward Princeton there and the motivation factor. So it's the long answer to your question. The short answer is no, I don't think you're totally insane.
Yeah, it's kind of neat, the way this plays out. Princeton will have gone through 5 weeks of the season. Everyone that they've played to this point, including this coming Friday, is either 4-0 or 0-4. I guess one of those was a forfeit, not played. But so it's really tough to get a good read on them. But I mean, they lost to, Newman Central Catholic by 2 touchdowns in week 1. They're 4-0. They lost to Rockridge by 1 touchdown in week 2. They're 4-0. They took that forfeit from Sherrard, which the IHSA says is 1-0. That drives me crazy. It should be 2-0. But anyway,
but at least you can find it right away.
Yeah, it's something, I guess. And then Kewanee, the Kewanee game last week, 63-12, that got him back to 500. Kewanee's 0-4. So, it'll be interesting. You really haven't seen when Princeton has played teams also undefeated like Monmouth Roseville has, they have played them very tough. I really think Princeton has a great chance here at home and with a little more of a chip on their shoulder, even if they hadn't lost any this year, just from last year's, kind of butt kicking they got at the hands of Monmouth Roseville. So I think this is going to be one of the better games kind of that small medium schools kind of around the state to watch. That'll really tell you something about where these teams are going down the stretch.
Yeah, that's the thing, is it's going to be illuminating no matter what the final score is, no matter how it turns out. If it does end up being a blowout one way or the other, which really at this point, I mean, is there a score I could tell you wouldn't believe?
No.
Like even 5-3 probably. There we go. 2 weeks in a row with a reference to that.
5-3 or
but
if we have any junior high kids listening, it could end up 6-7.
Yeah. Oh, please don't. Please, for the love of.
I have to live with it. You have to live with it too, man. 97% of our listening audience has no idea what we're talking about.
And be grateful. Every freaking. Okay, we're now talking 6-7 for the rest of this podcast. I know there's internet things that break your kids' brains, but this is broken it to a degree I've never seen before.
Yeah, and if you want to know what it means, I can't tell you, and I don't think any of the kids who say it can tell you.
I think it's a LaMelo ball. They told me like 3 different things. It might be a reference to like LaMelo ball, maybe. I'm old. I will not call myself a boomer, but I am. Definitely do not know. But oh my lord, okay. Sorry.
Eddie. I apologize.
Yeah, and the teams start getting 6 and 7 wins. It's just, oh man, it's
Well, you know what?
I could say it in an interview. I'm waiting. I think I got 6 or 7 touchdowns this year. No, stop it.
Okay, I'm the one who brought the water on board that we started sinking. I'm gonna bucket it off. I don't think we had any more games on our list that we really wanted to hit on. So
you triggered me, JT. You triggered me.
Where are you at this Friday night? Does your game start at 6 or 7? Sorry.
Can I walk away? Can I? I am at Genoa Kingston. I got the coning going on up there. I got the North Boone GK game. Like I said, I'm really interested in this one. I know 3-1 North Boone, 1-3 Genoa Kingston, but GK has been tight in all 3 of their losses this year. Obviously, they haven't played Dixon or Byron yet. Like North Boone has obviously played Dixon, like we talked about. But I think GK has a real shot in this one. I'm excited to see their offense out of the gun tee. I don't think I've seen a team run a gun tee before, at least not a team that I've cover one or run one. So I'm kind of interested to see what that looks like. So I'm excited for a good one on Friday. You?
I've got an 8-man game I'm pretty excited about. It's that Cambridge, Allwood, Ridgewood co-op. I think everyone calls it something different, but Ridgewood
I think is
the Ridgewood co-op. But then there is a Ridgewood that plays 11.
Well, then never mind. Then I'm probably thinking of the Ridgewood.
No, but this one generally goes by Ridgewood as well. But yeah, Ridgewood. I got them at Flanagan Cornell Woodland. A couple of those teams that have been right at the cusp of the top tier. I think Ridgewood's actually kind of been there in recent years. Has a new coach this season, but off to a good start. So them visiting Flanagan Cornell Woodland. The game's at Woodland, so it's right down the road for me. Their homecoming. They do a cool homecoming thing where they have like a student come out, on a horse and throw a spear at the king and queen as they line up to, it's a surprise. Throws it at their feet, I should say. Throws it at their feet.
I hope his aim's good, whoever it is.
Oh no, they throw it at least 6-7 feet away, so it's no big deal. But yeah, I'm really excited. This will be really good test for one of these two teams to, or a chance for one of these two teams to kind of insert themselves into that conversation as a contender in the 8-man football alliance. So yeah, very excited for that one. Excited to get a week 5, and then we're talking home stretch after that, Eddie.
Yeah, you got week 6 coming up after this, and after that, I believe. So on that note, we should probably end this before we're canceled. So if we may have been, I don't know if this even aired out. But thank you all for listening. Once again, he's JT Pedelty. I'm Eddie Carifio. Thank you all.